As a woman, if you ever felt some insecurities or your femininity, you were just trying to figure everything out as far as your confidence and how you felt about yourself and how you look, and you're going through these different stages of life. If that's you, this episode is for you. You don't want to miss it. What's up, Brave Arts community? This is Shon Hyneman. We have a special guest, first time guest with us today. I want to introduce you to today's guest. She is a powerhouse executive, business coach, and international fashion curator, shaping the next generation of entrepreneurs and style innovators. Her corporate background spans Fortune 500 leadership and national profit strategy, grounding her approach in structure, systems, and sustaining growth through Aspire Wise Business Solutions. She empowers business owners to build fundable, scalable companies, while her brand, Kaja Couture, showcases globally curated lingerie and loungewear designed to inspire women to move with confidence, beauty, and intention. Brave Hearts community, let's show some love to Regina John Baptiste. How are you doing this evening?
Wow, Sean, what an introduction. I am doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. That's all you.
It's always so interesting when you hear someone else read your bio and talk about you, right? Because we always pouring into others and to hear it being given back, it's like, wow, who are they talking about? But thank you so much for a lovely introduction.
Yes, for sure. Had an awesome time at your launch. We're going to talk about that as well. Today's topic: how lingerie can help you heal after divorce, heartbreak, and low confidence. I thought this was a great topic worth addressing. I want to jump into this segment. And so I want to ask you, what moment in your life sparked the idea behind Kaja Couture?
Yeah, yeah. So the subject here is really, near and dear to my heart on several occasions. Divorce, you know, um, confidence, empowerment, etc. And so, what gave birth, however, to Kaja Couture is, I've been divorced for many years, and throughout that period of time, I always took pride in still self care, still making sure that, I showed up for me and I loved me. And around 2014, there was just some changes that happened in my life that a lot of women experience. And, a lot of times we don't talk about it, but it was, I started gaining weight and rapidly. And through that weight gain, I started feeling, some insecurities in regards to my body. But what really took flight was when I went shopping, to get some essentials, some bras, panties, the essentials, because I had outgrown everything. When I say literally outgrown everything. And so I went shopping to, really well known department stores that I always shop. And it was really disheartening for me because I had grown out of a size 12 and, you know, 14s was rare, 16 and 18, which is where I was bordering in, the size range. And there was nothing for me. Like, the experience was, unpleasant in far as the options, of what was available for me to select. The salesperson, as lovely as she was, she couldn't measure me properly. So it was just like a really unfavorable time that I had at these stores, and it was both two stores I went to.
Mhm.
And it was at that moment, out of frustration, Kaja Couture was born. I decided that I was going to, take matters in my own hand and not let the industry, the fashion industry, decide, what I was going to wear and how I was going to feel based on, my size, And so, with that being said, I set out on a mission to curate lingerie for women of all ages and sizes, and so here we are today.
Wow. Well, I'm sure that experience had to be tough. And so I'm glad that you were actually proactive in making the necessary change to help other women not have to experience what you experienced, that you can actually set that up for other women. Um, and my wife, Clarissa and I, we had a chance to go to the soft launch. It was beautiful.
Oh,
Everything was done in excellence. The outfits were amazing. I believe my wife ordered something, and I mean,
good.
the people there, yeah, the people there were awesome as well. And so it was just a great experience. The music, everything was top tier. So thank you for that opportunity. So for those who didn't see that, it's on my Instagram. You'll be able to see that as well. My wife and I did some recording there. So it was definitely a great experience. I want to ask, your brand focuses on a personal boutique style fitting. And so, what makes the Kaja Couture experience different from traditional lingerie shopping?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and something that I really put a lot of thought and intentions in when building, Kaja Couture. One, really looking at the experience that I encounter as I share with you, that I know so many other women encounter as well. And not just women in terms of plus sizes, but women of all sizes, to be honest with you. Not being able to find things that are fitting for them, and even unique pieces, right? And so with Kaja Couture, the experience is really about intimacy, intention, and empowerment. Whereas your traditional lingerie shopping, it's more of transactional. You'll grab pieces off the rack and you hope for the best. What we do with Kaja Couture, it's a personal experience, so we take time to get to know you, get to know, what you're looking for. Sometimes it's alter ego. Women like to, you
Yeah.
know step into their alter ego, their femininity, and that's what we're all about, helping you to craft whatever that look is you're going for, right? And we do that by that one-on-one approach. We also, one of the unique things about our boutique styling, we also do events, whereas it may be a girlfriend, girls' night out, where we bring the lingerie to you, and the women can shop. We talk about lingerie, we talk about bra fitting, so it's an educational component, right? Because that's about part of empowerment, right? Whether you shop with us or you're going somewhere else, you're armed with that knowledge so that you can make the right decisions, so that whatever you put on your body, it feels good, right?
Mhm.
And so we like to honor women in everything that we do, and that's what really makes us different from your traditional shopping, and more
Mhm.
specifically and exclusively lingerie shopping. We bring it to you.
Yeah. I love that concept. I love it because even when we were at the event, you were being very informative. And so that was definitely an addition. Even though me being a man, I was still learning some stuff.
Yes. Well, you know what, Sean? So interesting, because I started this business in 2015. Yeah, 2015 during COVID. We, of course, like as many businesses, because we were in person, we had to pause operations. And so it was really like a relaunch here in Houston, which was great. But I had so
Mhm.
many men clients shopping for their wives,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of it, because, it's not for lingerie, as I mentioned, and you may recall me talking about, lingerie is really about, the woman having to feel, she has to feel it, right? She has to feel
Mm.
that empowerment. She's wearing it for her,
Mhm.
right? And by proxy, the spouse benefits from it. You know what I mean? It's that confidence, that laughter, that feminine feel and look that, she exudes when she's coming into the room. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's about how we feel on the inside, that really brings it out to everyone else on the outside. So yeah, I love the curation, of lingerie, because it is really unique to each individual woman, but yeah, I love my men clients, like it's like that's a great part because they're like, okay, let me try this, so yeah.
Oh yeah, we benefit as well. So
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
because I'm sure the more confidence that she shows and that she has with what she purchased, I mean, of course, you can feel that energy as a man as well. So
Absolutely. And that's really important. It's amazing. We hear, and I'm sure, you've heard about, how the power of colors, right? And how, like your red, that red evokes some type of emotion,
mhm,
right? And it's the same thing when you're wearing silk and lace. These things are the closest to our skin, and you want to feel that Italian lace on your skin. That makes you feel great. It makes you feel luxurious. And that's the image, your posture changes, it just makes you feel different. And like you said, the significant other benefits as well.
oh, yeah, for sure, for sure, love it. I want to ask. You talk a lot about women feeling seen and valued, and so what personal experiences shape that passion?
Yeah. Um, a couple of things. One, my passion growing up, in the church, and
Mhm,
my mom and her girlfriends, was just all so loving and supporting of one another.
yeah,
So that has always been a passion for me, helping other women. The second part is a story that I don't have the opportunity to share a lot, but when I was in the military, I had a Navy sister that came to me to ask some advice. Not sure, I'm in my 20s at the time, not sure why she was asking me for advice, but hey, but she came to ask about advice, in regards to her marriage. And she said that her husband was complaining that she don't dress up for him anymore. She's not sexy, along those lines, when she come to the bedroom.
mhm,
And I asked her, I said, well, what happened? What has changed? And she said to me, she said, well, I got him now. We're married. I shouldn't have to. And I was like, because in my mind, I'm thinking, every relationship, right? Whether it's a friendship, a mother and daughter, a father and daughter, father and son, every relationship needs to be tended to, right? And so, in her saying that, I felt that it was something deeper, and I just kept digging. And finally, we got to the fact that she no longer felt sexy,
mhm,
and so she stopped wearing those things because she had become a mother, she's working, and a lot had changed, her body changed, and again, these are conversations that we as women really don't talk about, like body image,
yeah,
right? And so she had went through this transformation in terms of her body, and so the things that she used to wear, she didn't feel comfortable wearing anymore, and so having said that, it's funny because even at that time I was saying to her, well, we can dress you up, and to make you feel good, again, it goes back to what we feel on the inside, right? A woman, what we feel on the inside, it also emanates to what our partner feels, and so that was also something that stuck with me, just having that passion, to help people, women, again, of all ages and in stages of life,
mhm,
to feel empowered and to feel valued. So yeah, that's my personal experience and what really drives me, and really gives me great joy, seeing. I had a client that was getting married, and what she had shared with me is that she can never find anything, that was that didn't look, her words, like, didn't look grandmomish, and nothing wrong with the grandmoms. But based on the fashion industry, because there's this perception once you get a certain age, you can't wear certain things.
Hmm.
Now, there are certain things, in terms of fashion, I agree. I think fashion should always be tasteful. I think lingerie should be tasteful, but that's tastefulness is not for a society to dictate. It's basically, tastefulness based on, where you are, right? So age shouldn't play a factor, right?
Hmm.
It's how you feel, is what you should wear. And again, I'm all about luxury. So, tastefulness is really important to me. And being able to, you know, put that young lady for her honeymoon and her vacation into pieces, right? That made her body feel great, made her look great. That was a really empowering moment. And that's why I love what I do. It's like,
Yeah.
seeing people smile and feel, confident and great about themselves, is just such a blessing. And
Hmm.
yeah, I can do this all day and I could talk about it all day.
And no, I love it because I mean, here it is. This, you know, you talked about this. It was almost as if this was something that you were supposed to do. Even
Shon,
back then.
oh, yeah, it's interesting you should say that because um, probably about a year ago, my prayer was the opposite. My prayer was like, God, like, why? And I actually had a conversation with a friend. I'm like, I'm always pouring into everyone else. Like, God, why? I just want to focus on me. Like, the children are grown. I want to just do me. And, I sat on that and I had to laugh like maybe a few days later because God was like, "Mm-mm. This is your ministry.
Yeah.
This is your ministry, and it is because when I really reflect back, it's something that I've been doing since I was a kid, you know, and
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And lingerie is just a tool, you know, to do that. It's a tool to have those conversations, right? To get deeper into sisterhood, community, us being vulnerable and supporting and building confidence and empowering one another, and so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because when we were at your event, I mean, I it was strong as far as like seeing the women that was there, very supportive. And so I could tell that you had some relationship with them where they really believed in the brand and everything that you stood for. And I mean, I seen that just from the time that I got there. And so it
Yeah.
definitely it felt like a sisterhood there to a degree. Like it felt like everybody there was like, hey, this is what we supporting and this is what we believe in and believing in your vision. So
Yeah, thank you. It's
yeah.
it is really, I don't take that for granted at all, and I'm grateful, and I always give credit to God, so I have to say that because my light shines based on who my father is, and so I'm, with gratitude, and I always believe that God always bring people together, at the right time and place, and so that's why when I wanted to back away, God was like, mm-mm, it's not time. You have more work to do, So yeah, yeah. So that drive to help women feel seen and valued, it really comes from witnessing, these real life moments,
Mhm.
and moments where a woman just needs to be reminded, that she is worthy,
Yes.
that she's beautiful and deserving of feeling good in her own skin,
Mhm.
and that's what really shaped my passion and continues to drive me to do what it is that I do.
Yeah, especially in this social media age that we live in, where we bombarded with images, and you know you could see people from all over the world. I mean, different women, different different countries, different. Everybody's built different. Everybody, so I'm almost sure that sometimes that can even play on you mentally. Maybe I don't look like her, or maybe these kind of different things. And so to be able to have that confidence, and especially with what you're doing with the lingerie, I'm sure that's something that helps build that confidence. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Why do you believe lingerie can be a tool for self-love and not just for something for romance?
Yeah. And so, first and foremost, I love romance. And your audience, I'm single. I love romance. I'm totally, totally, I love love.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, self-love begins with how you feel,
Hmm.
right? And it evolves, and it then, before it involves anyone else, it has to come from inside, as we mentioned earlier. And romance is wonderful, of course. But lingerie, at its core, it's really about women connecting, or a woman connecting with herself.
Hmm.
And it's the first layer that we put on in the morning, and often the last one we take off at night. It sits closest to our skin.
Hmm.
It frames how we show up in the world, even when no one else sees it.
Yeah.
I mentioned at the launch, that I used to and still do in instances. I'm just not in the office, I'm just on Zoom now.
Hmm.
But these meetings, I would wear, special lingerie for certain meetings. And it did invoke some empowerment and made me feel good. It just had my posture different. And so it's something deeply transformative about it, when you're choosing pieces that really honor your body, your mood, your femininity, and your confidence. And so lingerie to me, and I've always loved lingerie. I've traveled across the world, and I always go lingerie shopping. Two things I do when I travel: lingerie and spa. My favorite two things,
Yeah.
because that's part of the self-care. And again, it's invested in yourself, being, you know, um, be taking honor in how you feel and how you look.
Hmm.
I always tell people, we can dress up on the outside, that's great. But a lot of times the foundation is what helps you, the outer layer, your outer clothing, look good. If you have on, let's say, items underneath, let's say a bra that's where you're bulging out,
Hmm.
your under that undergarment is going to display on the outer layer of your clothes.
Hmm.
And so the foundation pieces start there. And of course, lingerie, goes beyond just the essential pieces, the foundation pieces. But at the core, we're talking, whether it's at night, making sure you're comfortable. I used to have um, a regimen on Sundays. After church, we do our Sunday drive. When we start winding down for the evening, take a nice hot bubble bath, slip
Hmm.
on some lingerie, get my book and just chill and relax. And that helped me to then transition into the next day, right?
Hmm.
Be prepared for the next day. So again, it's a part of, self-love and self-care, right? That doesn't always, we should, as women, romanticize ourselves, because you need to know what love about you,
Hmm.
so that other people can know and understand what to love about you.
Yes, yes, because and as I listen to you, I'm glad that you're coming from the perspective of you're doing this for you. And so anybody that comes into your life, or you get married, like that person benefits from you already loving you. And
Yep,
so yeah.
100%.
So I love that you started with yourself. I love that. And so, what do you say to women who struggle with body image or feel disconnected from their femininity?
Yeah, the first thing I say is that you're not alone. and that there's nothing, absolutely, absolutely nothing wrong with you. Like every woman at some point in her life experiences moments when she feels disconnected from her body or her femininity, right? It could be that time of the month and you're feeling bloated, you feel disconnected, and all these different hormones raging, so life happens, we have children, etc. Stress, weight changes, health changes, grief, aging, all of that impacts how we see ourselves, but none of that takes away from our beauty or our worth. And that's what we have to remember. You mentioned earlier, Sean, in terms of all of the different images, social media, internet, we see so many, even AI, coming up with these
Mhm.
pictures of women, it's like, she's perfect. How can you get like that? There's no such thing as perfect,
Right.
and the body is an art. The body is an art. And that's what I love. I love my men, but I love the body of a woman because it is so unique. Each of us are made uniquely. It's art. And I just often wonder, like, wow, God, like this is amazing. We're all different, we're all uniquely made,
Mhm.
right? And so why should we want to go around looking like everyone else?
Mhm.
Why?
Yeah.
We have to honor the body that we're in. There's nothing wrong with people who want to improve. I work out, I'm always looking to improve, from a health perspective first, and then from an aesthetics perspective.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to be able to honor, the body that we're currently in and appreciate and love that, so that when we do, if you do have some transition, some transformation, it's not driven based on how everyone else look or what society says beauty is and has defined that for you. And now you're in your head thinking that you're not beautiful, you're not worthy because some images have told you so.
Mhm.
And so I love to help and encourage women to give themselves permission to soften, to just soften, slow down, soften yourself, reconnect with the parts of themselves that they muted to survive, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good because we grow up seeing images on TV, social media, and then it's like, well, I don't look like her, or I don't look like this person or that. And it's like, but you have to embrace who you are and having that peace within and knowing who you are and becoming the best you as possible. And I believe that exudes that other people they feel that energy from you, like, okay, she really walking in confidence, so
I try. And now I don't, I have my moments like, girl, what's going on? You know what I mean? But that's the outer layer, right? And again, it comes from within. And that's why I say lingerie, that's a part of the equation. You know, um, that's one part. The other part is the opportunity, which is why I love when we're able to when the host is hosting parties and we're able to educate and have those, real conversations about the woman body,
yeah.
being able to talk about our concerns, things that we want to improve, things that we honor and value, the stretch marks, those things that we try to erase. That's a part of beauty. That's a part of, something that God has blessed us with, being able to bear children. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? That's a part of identity,
Yeah.
and being able to really embrace those things, those unique things about us. It's so empowering. And again, it starts within, right?
Yes.
And that's why it's important for us to love ourselves and to care for ourselves, so that way we can show up. When we do show up for other people, we can show up because we've shown up for ourselves first.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and confidence, I mean, you can see confidence from a mile away. You see someone who believes in themselves, who is confident. And like you say, we all have those days. We all we struggle sometimes. You know, that's just
Mhm.
a part of the human experience. But for the most part, you can tell when you see someone who's confident. And so I only can imagine just having the lingerie to go with it, you know.
Strut, strut. Sashay, sashay.
And the
Lights on.
the models, they did a wonderful
That's
job.
right. Weren't they excellent?
They
Oh
were
my gosh,
excellent.
I love them.
Yes.
And that was part of the experience, the diversity,
Mhm.
in size and shape and stages of life. That's the beauty of womanhood,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For married women or women dating again after divorce, how can intimate fashion help rebuild confidence?
Hmm.
And,
That's
and,
a
and I
really
kind of want
great
to,
question.
and I kind of want to emphasize on married women. That's because I think
Yeah.
for married women, uh, when you're dealing with the husband and kids, I kind of want to emphasize on that a little bit, if you will. And how can the intimate fashion help rebuild confidence?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And so, for married women, how can the intimate fashion help to rebuild confidence? Yeah. So, I think it's a partnership for one, right? And that partnership, now I'm going to go back to when I talk about the men buying the lingerie
Hmm.
for their spouse, right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes, when as women, as mothers, as wives, we're in that go mode, a lot of times, in our households, both parents are working,
Hmm.
and so the question becomes, when do you take time for yourself? We talk a lot about self-care, and self-care is like the theme, that's been existing in our society for a few years now, based on the whole wellness. And it is important. We should have been having these conversations long time ago, right?
Yes. Yes.
And especially for mothers, and wives, and so part of that relationship, is how do we step away from that, right? And that comes with the date nights,
Hmm.
and part of that date night, if you're able to send the kids to the grandparents, and that
Hmm.
date night of having, now I get real creative here, right? So, where the nice dinner, the husband cook dinner at home, or take the wife out, but have the lingerie laid out on the bed when she gets back, nice bath, shower, rub down, slip on the lingerie, and then just let her relax,
Yeah. Yeah. I love.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And so sometimes, we as women, we can't turn it off, right? As wives, as mothers, we can't turn it off. And so that may require our spouse to step in, take notice, because that's the other part of a woman being valued and seen. You know, she don't want to put the lingerie on and you just be like, oh, rip it off. No, you want to be valued, you want to be seen, right? At least let me take a few shots, so give me a few moments.
Yeah. Right.
Feel the lace,
I know. Right?
but she want to be valued and seen. And being seen also means, you know, doing those type of things, taking her away from or giving her that self-care that she can't give to herself,
Hmm.
and so she doesn't always have to be the one to buy it. That spouse can buy it for her,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the beauty of it, and that really helps, to rebuild the relationship in general, not just the woman,
Yeah.
but the relationship as a whole, right? Because that's what it is. That partnership is holistic,
Hmm.
so everything that that woman benefits from, the spouse benefits. So it's that partnership. So it's rebuilding the relationship. Now going back to earlier in the conversation, my friend in the Navy,
Hmm.
is that we have to be intentional about continuing and rebuilding our relationships, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's, when it comes to marriage, it is definitely a team concept. I mean, I was looking at a Instagram reel the other day, and there was some statistic, and I've been knowing this for years, but I'm glad to see people talk about it. Was the division of labor in the household, and
Yeah,
knowing that as a wife has to work just like he's working, and so it's like, what does that look like for our household to thrive when we both have to pull the weight? But a lot of times the woman is pulling, she's working and doing more of the chores at home. And so it would be hard for her to want to put on some lingerie, and she's
yeah,
worked 14 hours and trying to help with the kids and all this other stuff. And so it is important that as a husband, you help take some of that load off of her. And so that way she can be in her full femininity and to be able to relax and to be able to, wear her lingerie, and you get to spend some time with her. And she's not so tired, you know.
exactly. And in some cases, you just really let her admire her and just let her rest, right? Because
Uh-oh, it stopped. Okay, I think our guest will be back shortly. I think we're having some technical difficulties, but she should be back in a little bit. And so I'll make sure to have that information in the description below. And I'll have her, yeah, contact information with the website and everything. And so this was a special edition of the episode. And we had the opportunity to go to Houston for the event. And like I was saying before, that you'll be able to see it on my Instagram. The event was amazing. It was a weekend for my wife and I to get away, and so that was one of the beautiful parts of going to Houston for the weekend. Of course, we're in Austin, and to get away for a weekend and to go help celebrate her soft launch, and then for us to be able to spend a weekend away. So that was something that was awesome. So hopefully she'll be able to get back on, but if not, we'll make sure that we get this episode out to you as soon as possible, because I know this is a live recording.